across. And then we thought then we would go to, we've got a specific tab for downtown Lawrence, and we got a specific tab for South Park, not a tab, a section. So we thought we'd go through those because, they're all
can see this.
kind of down in this portion of town. And then if we have time, so trying to keep this to 2 hours, or if you have time, then you can throw out a park that you want to ask a question about, and we can go down to that. But we tried to do this with the entire staff 2 weeks ago. And, our brains were fried by
It was 5 or 6 hours.
So it was so that's what we have planned. So, with that, Jasmine, do you want to, go ahead and start?
What do you want from us?
Comment? She's gonna bring up what the recommendation is. We'll go who the responsible group is, and high and low impact and short and long term, and the performance measures, and just get input from you all about your comments on each particular section.
All right, well, if we're ready to kick it off, like PJ said, they'll get into some of the really detailed stuff, but for arts and culture, we've made several recommendations, and I hope that you guys will be able to see some of the input that you have provided, things that you had seen in the statistically significant survey that went out by ETC, and some other things that came up in the open house. So happy to get to this point with you all. So the first recommendation that we would like to make is to strengthen the presence of Indigenous community within the city through arts and culture collaborations. One of the things that we had heard throughout this process is that there was a bit of a disconnect, and that a lot of community members thought that there was a lot of value in strengthening that relationship, bringing Indigenous community members in Haskell into the fold when it comes to arts and culture events. And so one of the first recommendations that we made was to strengthen that presence and try to pull those members in through more collaborative processes. The next one is to formalize the Lawrence Public Art Program. So the resolution was reaffirmed 3 times, initially starting in 1986, so it has a long legacy, and we would like to propose bringing it to a really formal state with an ordinance that would make that funding consistent and a little bit more reliable so that public art can be created. The next recommendation is to formalize collaborative relationships with the Lawrence Arts Center, Theater Lawrence, the Watkins Museum, and/or the Lawrence Public Library as cultural programming partners of the PRAC department, and really elevate those partnerships within the city, highlight that within the community, and ensure that where these organizations function best, everyone feels like they're communicating well, they're able to do the work that they do best, and there's a lot more opportunity for cross collaboration there. Next, we have improving grants to support arts and culture and encourage more the creation of arts and culture throughout the city. Some ways in this way this might happen is mural grant programs that are provided by the city, so those applications are coming directly to the city, or grants for musicians to perform. So next, this was a big point. Oh, we skipped one, sorry. Right at the top there. Yes, okay. So one of the things that came across really strongly in our focus group sessions and in the statistically significant survey was the desire for even more arts and culture related experiences in the city, especially outdoors in parks and in community and public spaces. So the next recommendation is to develop additional signature events in Lawrence. The next recommendation, and this would be in response to the formalization of the public art ordinance with consistent funding, would be to explore creating a new monument or public artwork at Robinson Park in response to Sacred Rock, and just to kind of, this is something that's happening all over the country right now. We're also involved in another monuments project with the Mellon Foundation, but there's a lot of momentum nationally to understand what monuments mean and who they represent, the stories that they tell. So
is Robinson by the river?
Between the bridges.
Okay.
The next recommendation is to execute a market study for the building of an outdoor event space or amphitheater and to understand the community demand and programming types that would be successful in Lawrence. So in the survey, in our focus groups, and just throughout the engagement process, we heard a lot about outdoor spaces for people to connect and experience arts and culture, but there's still a lot of outstanding questions on how feasible that is. So the first step in that direction is to try to understand that issue, and a market study would help shine some light on that. Next is to increase the creative capital. So work with the Affordable Housing Office and Advisory Board to explore the possibilities for affordable housing in Lawrence for artists. So building that arts community, bringing more people into the community and giving them some stability so that they can be here to do what they do best, which is great. Next is on a similar thread, explore developing the historic Grover Barn building into an arts and culture site. So it's a site with a lot of historic value, but provides some interesting considerations in terms of what's there, how it's currently being used, and some, accessibility stuff that would have to be worked out. So arts and culture can sometimes be a great retrofit for those types of buildings. Another, sorry.
With that, where is that? I'm not familiar with that either.
Lawrence Avenue, it's the old fire station.
And Clinton Parkway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to the south of Clinton Parkway.
It's just north of Holcomb Park. But it's
Yeah.
nestled in the neighborhood up there.
Okay.
Okay, so our next recommendation, again, similar thread with in response to formalizing the ordinance, would be to enhance city entrances with large landmark art pieces. So when you bring public art in a big statement way, it's something that can be seen every day. Events are amazing, performances are amazing, but public art in the built environment really puts a stamp on the community and says, this is a place for the arts. So having that present in the city is a great way to elevate the value that the city sees in the arts. Develop a sculpture garden in the Rotary Arboretum. It's the next recommendation. Again, through public art dollars, this could be achieved. And then finally, develop a menu of collaborative special events to include cultural events that celebrate the diversity of the Lawrence community. That was one of, again, the largest portions of feedback we received on all fronts, was ways in which arts and culture can be experienced. So.
Any thoughts or questions on any of these recommendations?
Can we comment on them?
Absolutely, yeah, I mean, we
Okay.
can scroll to the top and work down if you like.
No, I
Could you
wanted to,
scroll to
s-
the top? I
there's,
can't remember all of them.
there's partnerships that are mentioned, but the lead center is not mentioned. And I think the lead center would be very receptive to being seen as part, I mean, it is part of the cultural scene. So, and I know Derek would be very keen on it. Also, in the summer, when COVID summer, we had, the lead center had pop-up like concerts, right? Is that what you would call it? In neighborhoods. And that was very popular, I think. There were a lot of people there. So anyway, so a connection with the lead center, I think, would be very useful. And then if it were my decision only, I would put enhance city entrances to a shorter term. It's listed as long term. And I just think entrances, when you go other places and sometimes you see this really, notable, like, whoa, this is really cool, but, especially off the turnpike, oh my gosh.
That first impression.
Yeah, right.
It's funny you said, because it's like, it takes such little effort, because like, I'm from Southeast Kansas, we just went home for Easter, and in Fort Scott, they put a big medal that says Fort Scott now in like their city, and my fiance is from there, and she's like, wow, oh my gosh, look at that, like, it's really a metal, it says Fort Scott on it, and just turned it from a green sign into a big metal black sign. It's like, so I think that's something that it's something, it's noticeable, that's easy, it probably wouldn't take a lot to do, so it's.
Even the sign at Eudora stands out.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
does,
takes
yeah.
just a little effort, but.
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Isn't it
We're
really
not
expensive though?
unmistakable. We're not unmistakable.
John,
It's just the city.
Weren't you at the meeting where they were talking about the entrances to the city and the new paint, possible new painting and lights and things? And it was very expensive. So I would hate to put, I guess my priority is putting money into people instead of signs. So I like the way it's laid out right now. I think what you're saying is very important. I think it's lovely. I was all for it until they started talking money.
Was that meeting out at Sports Pavilion?
Yeah, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, but that was talking about like bringing it into bridge infrastructure and.
Yeah, but it was on top of the bridge infrastructure. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that.
Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
yeah, no.
Mary, did you want us to have to scroll back up to the top and just?
I guess I do, I really like what you put together. The additional thing I would like to ask is, at some point, if there is going to be an assessment of the resources that we already have, the cultural arts assessment of the city. Because several of the things that you've got there, several of the recommendations sound really good. I would like to see them in the context of what we already have in terms of the facilities and programs that are already in existence. Because just, for example, the outdoor amphitheater, I hope that's really studied. As John said, the Lead Center did some outdoor stuff during COVID, and the Arts Center did the outdoor stage in South Park, and Theater Lawrence built an outdoor stage and did a lot of drive-in stuff and in the parking lots. And our climate really is not real conducive to outdoor things in the summer. So, you know, I would hope that would get looked at.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jasmine.
I was gonna say, Mary, I hear your concerns. That's why we landed on the study. It says outdoor space / amphitheater. It's trying to wrap in a few considerations. There was also a lot of desire for a sense of permanency and where outdoor events happen. So some things that were brought up were street closures, things like that, just having a consistent, reliable space in which those things happen. And I think the market study will help determine the scale, the placement, what types of programming would fit that space and crowds and all of that. So that's really why we landed on the study versus all out recommending something specific. I think there needs to be a little bit more of a regional understanding too of what exists in the region.
Sounds good.
Any other comments or thoughts on the arts and culture side of things?
Can you just go down?
Let me see one.
Again.
And we can start at the top again if you'd like. Just now that you've heard them all, if that'd be helpful.
I really like the improving grants, because we got so many grant requests the last couple of years that anything that can be done there to help arts organizations would be really good.
Yeah.
It really would have a high impact.
Yeah, and one kind of auxiliary benefit that I would hope would come out of that is when the city's offering things a little bit more directly, they can see the applicants that are coming in and the requests that are being made, and it just gives a little bit more insight into what people need. So even if an application doesn't end up getting chosen, I think it could help generate some ideas at the city level for what some desires are.
Anyone else?
I don't really have any questions, comments, or concerns. I just think it really covers a lot. I mean, it seems, especially incorporating more of the Haskell and indigenous communities and kind of folding that in. I feel like it's really important to this area. So I think it covers a lot.
Were there any ideas on what the Grove, is it the Grove barn?
Grove.
Yeah. The kinds of things that that might be used for?
So Steve is because Guardians of Grover Barn is very interested in the barn itself. It's hard to describe this if you can't see it, but
I think
The
it's
barn is
stone
there.
building, right?
it's a big stone building. For a period of time in the 70s, 80s, it was a studio for Pablo. Anyway, a KU professor. And then the city turned it into a full-blown fire station. So the barn itself is now an occupiable space. It's been vacant for quite a few years now.
Mhm.
But, so there's like a kitchen and, it's almost unfortunate, although ironically that probably saved the barn in a sense. And then there's a big bay where you could pull 2 fire trucks in. The problem is too, it's not ADA accessible. So there's those types of issues. Steve at the Watkins has worked with an architect who looked at it as sort of general study, but nothing specific. So the question would really be, do you turn it into an event space for somebody? Could it be office space for a variety of, so there's a lot of possibilities. The other issue is parking. It doesn't have access to a large parking area. So there are limitations that way, but I guess, the theory at this point is, can you turn the barn itself into some sort of interactive museum type environment? And then maybe keep the bay, and reconfigure it in some way for office space or something. It's really broad at this point. But that's sort of the theory of the thing, and see who might want to occupy that.
Yeah, parking is a big issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were a neighbor there, I can just imagine.
Yeah, there's parking for what, 7, 8 cars now?
Yeah.
And there's only like one real viable ADA
You just-
parking space, so anyway.
And is that parking on or just off of Lawrence Avenue, or do you have to go into the neighborhood to park?
No, it's actually right off of Lawrence Avenue, so it's built on a hill
Yeah.
there.
You could have a shuttle from Holcomb.
There's a lot of things that I would have done differently if I had been around in the 1970s and say, hey, we should build a little trail going to the Grover Barn.
Oh,
But anyway.
yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on the street closure? I think I heard something about street closure or something. Was that just in terms of like events or scheduling things
Because I'm
out?
looking at, the way events are run today, there's a lot of street closures and they want a permanent space that can be used.
Oh, like Mass
Like-
Street for concerts?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they want a permanent, venue, amphitheater, outdoor performance space that holds all of that so that you don't have to shut the streets down.
So you get the event organizers who like to shut the streets down, but then you have the merchants on mass saying you're not allowing people to get for businesses.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I've always petitioned for like almost like a First Fridays, like once a month, you shut Mastercard, you bring in different artists and different, people like that, have them kind of collaborate with local business owners in that kind of form. So they don't want that. Interesting. Okay.
You know-
Aren't there proposals for event spaces, both the KU, what's it called, Gateway? The one near the stadium.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're doing an event space there, and then also the old Journal World building. Isn't there a proposed event space in there?
It's Yes, it's not like to
An
the
outdoor
scale,
one, yeah.
yeah, it's not to
Yeah.
the scale that I think that people would be envisioning with this. Yes, yes, and, my question with
Fine.
that outdoor event space, is there ways to explore kind of that predictable street closer model where we have the street bollards that can come up and down, and it's always the same footprint as opposed to completely moving away from that? It's just something that I gained some traction. That at least if it was a predictable traffic pattern, people might not feel as impacted by the street closures.
And this is more of a feasibility study is what's being
Yeah.
proposed, so I think
Okay.
it's gonna take a whole nother round
So many more
of
meetings.
study and everything else.
Do we know if it's the same conversation with business owners downtown when they shut down for parades? Is there a time of day difference?
We didn't get into that, that's
I
just. one
just
of the
wonder if that affects them positively or negatively. I feel like anything to get people downtown is positive.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking.
We handle various permits and things, and so, yeah, there's, no two events are the same.
Right.
And it depends on, you're right, the day matters, that type of thing, but not everybody is as enamored with, the challenges that events create for downtown. It's nothing against the events, it's just the impact.
Well, you might explore with, try to formally explore with KU what they're doing in that space, and let them know that the city might have some interest in some collaborative kind of enterprise. Because I thought they were gonna have, a hotel and all that stuff. And so it might be some outdoor space would be attractive.
It's been mentioned like in the downtown master plan, so it's been studied at multiple levels. And just knowing the history of Lawrence, everyone wants to be downtown or in South Park for everything.
Oh.
And anytime we try to move away from here, it gets pulled back.
Oh,
Have there
that's-
ever been city events at the football stadium? Has that gone well? Do we know? I mean, I've only been here for 7 years, and then there was a 10-year gap before. Oh, it's been that long.
I can't read.
Anyways, I don't remember city events
Back
most
in
recently or in
70s
college or,
80s, they used to do the fireworks there.
yeah.
I was gonna say,
So-
I've been here 20 years, I can't think of any city events.
Inside the stadium.
Football stadium, okay.
Fireworks, both, like kind of just the whole thing.
Just how people set up.
Okay.
They put a stand up in that south end zone, people sit on the hill and had concerts.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
They've had a movie night down too.
But even the homecoming parades are downtown, the Fun Four parades are downtown.
Right.
They could be held on campus. but
Right.
Who wants to be downtown? So it's a little bit of culture of Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Everything needs to be downtown. So
Peter Lawrence is real happy out
there,
west.
you're out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
It's an easy peasy trip to go out
That's
there.
right. People like-
Always
People
parking.
like the parking.
Well, you better get to the show on time, though. Don't come late. I've learned that.
Okay, any other comments?
No, I'm just imagining where outdoor west side space, like I'm just imagining, because that's where my family is, so. I didn't really think about like, oh, there isn't any activities outside and sports at Rock Talk Park or the lake. Biking trails, but like gatherings, concerts, outdoor, things like that, I can't imagine where anything would be, but that would be awesome to be close instead of having to come downtown.
So Sesquicentennial Point has been a topic of conversation for an amphitheater because it's far enough away from neighborhoods that sound.
Sesquicentennial Park.
Yeah, so it's the outlet park below the dam.
Do you know where
There's a
Mutt Run
Like
is?
the,
You know where
yeah, I'm
that-
there all the time.
hill. Okay, so.
Just north of the dog park.
Is it the golf course,
No,
something?
No, it's the other way.
Yeah.
So when you go into the dog park,
Oh,
there's
like
little
a
road
single lane, like a
that goes
small,
up the hill.
goes up to
and that's
nothing.
clear.
okay,
Go up there. Go up there. this
Go up
side.
there?
Yeah, you can drive up there.
okay. No, I actually park at the end where maybe the city facility at the Arboretum Road.
Yeah.
So
You gotta go out the other
I
side.
park there and then walk up to the fields of the dog park. I don't park in the dog park parking lot.
You'll actually see a sign that says Sesquicentennial.
Okay,
You drive all the way up, it sits up, you can see the lake.
I could ride my bike there.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Because that's been the dream.
Yeah,
you know,
that
that's
would be
been a
so
dream
cool.
for
Yeah, but it's not an asphalt road,
No, it would take quite a little bit of improvement.
depending on your bike.
What?
Take your gravel bike.
It's not an asphalt,
Yeah, it's a gravel road.
Can handle it.
so depending on your bike.
Got a great bike.
So like, what actionable like advice are you want, like, can we give you for this component? Like, are you wanting like 1, 2, 3, like ideas? Like, I just want to make sure we're delivering. I mean, because I think like this is like formalized, different people like, or different like. What can we
Yep.
offer, I guess, in terms of not just like, sure, that sounds like a good idea, but like, 'cause I like the ideas of murals, like as somebody's very outdoorsy, like when I cross under, head towards Haskell, I love the mural now that's underneath the bridge there. I don't know how people really see it much, but it's really cool to me. I think that's really pretty. I'd love to see more of those. But like, are they wanting like statues and stuff along like the trail system just to kind of, I don't know, you have like the readathons and little things like, but you want something more for like arts focused along the trail, like I feel like that would be something that'd be pretty easy to do, and it's not like we have tons of like stopover like lights and things along like burrows and some of the trails that I feel like that'd be a cool way to break up maybe just the transition between kind of the recreation and maybe bringing culture to arts and culture to a space that it's not currently at, as I don't know. I like the pretty outdoors, but also you kind of need to see some art. You'd be opposed to that. I guess like I'm just thinking like what I have my teacher like hat on. I'm like, okay, students, tell me what you want me to do, and like so I think like I'm just like trying to figure out.
I think from our standpoint, if there's anything that we haven't touched on that people want to see in these recommendations, let us know.
Yeah, I think
So
also
that we can discuss that with.
and just, your familiarity as the steering committee with the recommendation, because ultimately, I think the Parks Department is going to want to have you folks there the night we present to commission for approval, saying, yes, we've been aligned and we really think this is a great plan to move forward. It's ambitious. It's many years in process to get it to that point. Like that's the key thing, is knowing that the group that's worked with us through this is supportive of it and is willing to go to the commission and say, yeah.
PJ, you might just briefly articulate, some people may not be familiar with an implementation matrix as a tool. So explain that a
For
little
all us,
bit.
we'll have a whole implementation matrix, and I jump in if I screw this up. It says, okay, this is, here's priority 1s, 2s, and 3s, generally the cost of those items, and then kind of give you a roadmap. Hey, first, you always want to try to pick the low hanging fruit first, just to show that the plan is, you're following the plan, and you're getting the value out of it with that, and just gives you a roadmap for the next 10 years of how to accomplish what's in the plan. 'Cause, I don't know if the city has decided. What we typically like to see in these plans is that when the plan is approved, that it becomes part of the comprehensive plan of the city, which gives the Parks Department a little more ability to say, we're wanting to do this because it was number 3 in this plan that we worked with the citizenry to get. And that's why we're asking for this money. It just puts a little more up to the ask that, well, hey, we're asking because you all approved this.
It's gone through.
So this just also outlines whose responsibility it is, and then timeline to get things done, and then just how it's measured on success as well.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in, I know that a lot of specific ideas about public art was being thrown out. That recommendation to formalize the ordinance. So as future capital improvement projects happen, a lot of that public art can be tied to the construction of those. So this allows for things to be like a little bit more site specific and not put in after the fact as well. So I think that's really great energy, and I love to hear that you're already thinking that far ahead. So if you know, in the future, like this just becomes more of like a rolling basis opportunity for the city. And so I hope you bring that energy to all of those projects and ideas and, you know.
So talking implementation as things like, as this plan moves forward, there would be, I assume, like a study of why some of these things aren't already happening, like specifically the murals, because I know that there's a lot of barriers when people apply to have murals on their buildings and a lot of different approval processes. So along with this implementation, would we be exploring like the efficiency of the process to have people get some of these things done, like murals specifically? I know a lot of businesses who have struggled with
I think
getting
when
that.
and Porter, jump in, when it turns into an ordinance, that means you're going to have some specific ways of doing things. You know, number one is the percent of the construction budget. What does that relate into art? You know, is it 1%, is it 0.5%, is it 2%? And then just the process of how that happens, because at that point, then you've got to build I don't know, arts committee is something that says, okay, here's the people for this year or something that are looking through the artist portfolios that are submitted, and they're shortlisting down to 2 or 3, and they're making the decision for the community of what that piece is going to be at whatever facility that
I
is.
think we're talking two
I
different
think we are
things
too,
here.
yeah. I'm talking about more private, not public art in the sense of public funded, but the process to get it approved to put a mural on a structure is,
And we've streamlined, it's been streamlined.
okay. I know that the art center's been struggling on the side of their building after conversations with Margaret.
Well, they're doing it on 2 sides. So they're doing it in an alley, so it's 2 buildings and it has to go through historic, you know, so there's.
Right.
So, yes, we would want to improve that as much as possible. However, there may be, this is part of the challenge, is people see murals and they don't really know how it got there.
Right.
The
It's
murals
magic.
currently, I wish it was, that
Yeah.
would be a lot easier. The murals currently are, you know, usually put on private property, not by a city program, but the city reviews them.
Okay.
So anyway.
So this is more talking about murals on public or both, yes.
That's
and
what we try to figure
Okay.
out. The
Okay.
good news is cities like Philadelphia are way ahead of us. So we could probably learn a lot from them and say, how do we streamline this and make it more effective and determine which walls might be available for muralists.
And then kind of that same conversation on the event side is helping streamline that event right-of-way process to help not only the city produce more events, but the already private event producers that we already work with get their events done more efficiently.
Right, we have a new system.
You
that
know,
we're
I
working on
think-
now.
Yeah.
I think that the comprehensive plan, once approved, will be a guideline for the staff to prepare its annual budget and capital improvements budget. Also, though, it can be used by the Parks and Rec Board and by the Arts Board to advocate for certain kinds of things that we know are part of the plan. And that could be going directly to the city commission and arguing. It can be going to a particular department and arguing, but there's, you know, there are several avenues to get what we want to get. And so I don't think you necessarily formalize all of those kinds of things. I mean, if like, okay, I'm the chair of Parks and Rec. So if somebody came to me and said, why don't you guys talk about murals on buildings and so on and so forth? Then I'd write to Porter and I'd say, Porter, tell me what's going on with, and Porter would say that, and I'd say, okay, well, let's put this on the Parks and Recreation Board agenda or the Arts Commission agenda and see where it is. And then we might say, you know what, let's take this to the city commission. There's a lot of avenues.
Well, that's kind of the track it's already on. I mean, they're already, there's a whole set of guidelines. If somebody wants to put up a mural, they have to fulfill the guidelines, they have to check with Porter. He brings it to the Arts Commission, and ultimately it has to be approved by the city commission.
So that's the process. I think what John's speaking about is maybe developing a program.
Yeah.
Where we would actually identify, say X number of walls each year that could be, and then provide some sort of stipend for artists to paint those. Because that would be in public buildings.
Right. Kind of like the sculpture.
Yeah, my experience with this is that John's right, and it's a both and, it goes both ways. We have people wanting to do murals, they have private opportunities, but other people want to have some sort of program where they can have that opportunity. So it's all doable.
Would you like to move on into the other tab?
Yes.
Jasmine, feel free to drop off if you're
Thanks, Jasmine.
done.
I appreciate all of you. The comments were excellent. We'll take those into consideration as we fully flush out all of these. So thank you all and have a great rest of your meeting.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
I should have said, I also love the idea of a sculpture garden in the Arboretum. I think that'd be cool.
So as we dig into the parks and facilities recommendations, we're gonna hit a couple of high level recommendations. One of the first goals that was created was to create a consistent identity for Lawrence Parks that is recognizable to the public at large. And the way that we're gonna get to that and make recommendations to achieve that. The first one is really to develop a parks signage master plan that enhances the wayfinding, identification, and information signage throughout the park system. And feel free to interrupt me with any thoughts or comments as we go through this. The next one is to create a site furnishing standards guidelines for the park system, which really the department already has. It's just more formalizing those things and making sure that things are consistent from one park or facility to the next. And that can change really from a sports park to a passive park. We just want to make sure that there's a consistent standard there that identifies things like lighting and benches and trash receptacles and waste stations and water fountains and all of those different things. We're gonna get to that too.
That's what I don't see on.
I know, I noticed the mention of
We'll
that
get
as
there.
well.
We've got one in here. for
Yeah,
that
I'm
one, too.
sorry.
We've also got one to establish guidelines for future shelter improvements that creates and incorporates custom, iconic, and durable elements to create identity for Lawrence Parks. And then the next goal is really to enhance the connectivity to parks and neighboring trails networks. And really to do that, we're recommending to adopt the Trails Master Plan that addresses connectivity and accessibility throughout the city of Lawrence and adjacent trail network, and identifies any additional sidewalks that are needed to really make sure that all those underserved communities have access to the trails network.
Could I weigh in here? Has anybody brought up the idea of a trail from here to Johnson County?
Yeah, I can't remember where Metro Green ends. I think it ends at, it's farther than 435.
It's further than 435, but I think
But
it's.
I don't think that recommended, it's been talked about, I don't think that really got as far as recommending a corridor from Metro Green all the way over to Lawrence.
I remember the county manager in Johnson County advocated for that at one point. The former. Yeah, I thought it would be fun.
Be great.
The next goal was really to expand and improve park facilities. And so to do that, we are recommending to further study and analyze the development and maintenance of a dog park. Also to integrate elements such as environmental art, environmental learning stations, and nature play into different parks programs and locations. And really also to provide guidance and connection with the communities of all ages checklist to maximize the physical accessibility of public spaces to all levels and ages within the community. Any thoughts or concerns on that?
Well, you've gone through 12 and I don't see restrooms
Where's the
yet.
bathrooms now?
Hold on, I'll get there. We've got
That's the
some,
biggest complaint I hear about the parks.
we've got some more down here.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll jump here to the bottom. Improve safety in parks. We want to, and these are just action items. So the recommendation is to improve safety in parks because we heard that over and over again within the community and from the survey. And to do that, the action items are to establish safety standards in all parks, make sure that the parks are being designed with SEPTED identified within the parks. So crime prevention through environmental design, basically making sure that everything is visible from parking lots, from walkways, and making it easily accessible for police to go out and patrol these areas and make them safe.
How would that work with some of the parks that have like more trees, more than nature trail stuff?
Some of those, I mean, they're gonna do the best they can, visualizing what they can from the parking lots. Now, some of them may require a little bit more patrolling as far as bike police or something like that in certain areas. It just kind of varies from one park to the next.
So we'd have all the trees cut down.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that.
I think you have to
There's
think
no
about-
shade in parks anymore.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I
not,
think- Yeah, you have to think about the level of the resource. I mean, if you're wanting a nature trail that you're amongst the trees, that's a little, expectation is a little different. I think if you've got, like on your nature trail systems, your trail stopping points, all of those shelters, restrooms, those type of things should be designed that, there's no easy place for a person to hide. The vegetation is maintained in such a manner that it doesn't it doesn't hide views from parking lots that the police can use so they can see the activity areas with that. You can't fix everything that's existing.
Right.
I think also from new facilities, that would definitely be addressed with that.
It doesn't sound very realistic. I'm sorry.
I'm
What's
just
the-
imagining, not patrolling the major bike loop, but I'm just wondering, like, who's like, who from the city, like, goes out on the whole trail, is there a
is there
unit
police
that is assigned to, how do they, I don't know, I'm just imagining the maintenance of it, like, it's a massive loop, and safety and maintenance and,
You'd be better off going to the running club, Gary Griffiths and Astra and giving them a walkie-talkie and saying, on your route.
Yeah.
Phone us if you see something. I do all the time.
yeah, no, I'm just also thinking if I were out, and I'm no fear about riding the whole loop by myself, probably, maybe not at night, but just any time of day. And I'm just trying to recall if I'd ever seen a sign saying if you need to report a tree down, or, if there's like some safety 3-digit number, maybe it was like you've got highway, mile markers. Do we have bike markers, mile markers, or section? There are. Yeah, just thinking about if someone were out, if someone needed to report some sort of maintenance or some sort of safety or some sort of
That city app.
individual, or like, how do you really know where you're at? You're like, well, I'm west of Haskell, or I'm trying to think which way my streets are running. I'm south, I'm northwest of the wetland. I mean, it's just kind of like you get out there and you're on your own.
well, I mean, there are apps that can be developed
There is
specifically for
they've got-
trails.
The city's got Click Fix app,
Or,
pothole, tree.
okay,
You just get the app and then you just put your name and the location, hit the button and.
or if there are also that little sign, on a post at
Yeah.
5 to 10 points around the trail or something. to report, because those are the people actually using it.
So to explore this further, I recommend that you Google trees in Melbourne,
Okay.
and it will fascinate you what they did.
I'll put it into my
Yeah,
phone now.
yeah. Go ahead.
I knew we're gonna
They
get
geocoded
instructions.
the trees.
They geocoded their trees. Trees in Melbourne. Okay.
Along the same lines, looking at talking about developing a safety program for users that interface with non-housed individuals living in the parks. And also to look at increasing foot candles of light within the parks to 3 to 5 foot candles, particularly in parking lot areas. And then really to incorporate security cameras in unsafe areas of the park system, working with the Lawrence Police Department to accommodate that.
There's your restrooms.
Yes.
I
Goal
couldn't
one,
believe how many people said-
Recommendation for the goals to improve the lack of restrooms within parks. Really, that's to go through and determine the length of stay for each park based on the level of experience that's being available. And whether a restroom is needed and what type of restroom is needed. And then the action item 2 is really to establish a type of restroom standard needed in parks with the capital plan to improve access to them.
Are you, no, tell us what you're thinking, Mary.
I'm thinking it's a lot of words and not much action.
I think it's difficult to big ask. I mean, like if I'm not running at 5 a.m., there's definitely days I'm very disappointed it's not unlocked, but I also understand that like, you can't do that. You're gonna open the door and somebody could be sleeping in it, and things. And so I think you have to be somewhat conscious. And so I've never noticed a lack of restrooms. There are a lot of times I go to even sometimes at a decent time in the morning and they're locked, and that can be kind of tough. But I never really felt unsafe in
Have
them.
you taken a potty training toddler to the park for hours?
No, no.
Then you would notice.
Then you would
That's
notice.
where I'm coming from.
So just when we go back up the list, there's every single park is listed and every one that we said needs a restroom has been listed.
Okay.
So
Great.
what you're talking about is a South Park where people are coming here for a couple hours.
Right.
We need a restroom.
Mhm.
Brook Creek Park, you're literally within 50 steps of your house, probably.
Right.
Probably doesn't need a restroom.
So South Park doesn't have one,
It does.
so it needs additional?
No, it's fine.
It's
But
It's
there are
just
other
saying
parks
basically
similar to
community-
South Park.
Got it.
that-
Community parks, community
Sure.
level parks that are above a certain size is
Mhm.
typically where you would start with restroom
Yeah, I mean,
facilities.
if you got a park that
Small.
you're typically walking to or pushing a stroller to,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to justify the cost of a restroom in that, with that, because it's just the way your visit is designed is, you know, like a half hour after school or something.
Mhm.
Where it's just, because restrooms, not even knowing about the sanitary sewer connection, but $200,000
Mhm.
minimum, and that's a prefab.
Mhm.
You know, that's not they're improving aesthetically, but that's the type of things you look at, and then obviously having enough restrooms at South Park and the major parks where you've got, you know, event after event after event during especially the, you know, the spring, summer, and fall months.
Mhm.
So where would a park like DeVictor Park fall?
So that one's very surrounded by houses. So most.
I know,
the
but
major
some of us
cities-
live quite a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's borderline because you have that length of trail there that you may spend an hour and a
Yeah.
half walking the trail.
Cause I have ended up there with small children.
Yeah,
Why-
trails create a
It's
unique
Victor's,
institution
Bob
because,
Evans, and George Williams.
so like the Lawrence Loop, how often do we have a
And it's,
restroom on the
it's
Lawrence
a
Loop?
trail.
We look at that. We know there's some caps. So.
Part of it is dirt. No. You're saying to Victor, Bob Billings and George Williams?
Yeah.
And it's a single track through
Yeah.
trees and it's dirt path, and
Well,
then there's also.
There's
paved.
also a playground area
Mhm.
Up by the school. Yeah.
Across from Langston Hughes.
and
So-
there's another track.
To give you an example, Watson Park doesn't have a restroom. It should have a restroom.
Mhm.
So when we renovate the outdoor pool, we'll look at, can we add a park restroom in
That's a good
that
idea.
renovation?
Mhm.
So that's an example of one. We know out at Rock Chalk Park, people do that whole trail. There's no restrooms on that trail, and you're a long ways from home. So that one needs one.
Yeah,
down
and
low.
gas stations and stuff.
Yeah, so there, if you go up, there's probably 15 restrooms identified.
Wow.
Broken Arrow Park has one. When that park's hopping, one isn't, we need another one at the other end of the park.
Mhm.
So, Centennial Park has 2 restrooms. There's 2 sides of the park. Yeah, Perry has 2 restrooms, there's 2 sides of the park. So that, it always depends on where people are at.
Mhm.
YSC has 5 restroom buildings, because there's so many people there.
Yeah.
So It's a
Place
great.
seems to
one.
keep getting bigger.
Yeah,
Recommendation next is to enhance the existing infrastructure to support stronger level of use. And really to do that, the action items that we looked at were to update the life cycle replacement schedule of assets in the park with the goal of updating at least 5% of the total asset value of the park amenities each year. And action item number 2 is really to determine the level of use of that certain asset gets now and those that do not. And priorities, keeping assets that get the expected level of use and eliminate the assets that are past their useful life where appropriate. Next goal is to create a connected trail system that connects neighborhoods to city attractions and supports a 10-minute walk. And the action items associated with that are really to update the existing trails master plan in the city and create a loop spine system if possible. Incorporate access trails from neighborhoods to spine trails where appropriate. Establish maintenance standards for both hard and soft surfaces for trails. And really to establish where trail links are lacking and prioritize those trail development areas first. Establish trail events to highlight for the community and how to access and celebrate these trails, and really develop a heart healthy trail program that monitors and monitoring system with the local hospital in the city. And then finally, to establish a goal of making Lawrence the healthiest city in Kansas.
No, you can't do much with like giving you kudos, but I think you do. I think y'all do a good job with the trail system. When you look at a lot of communities, like larger communities like Lawrence, and you can see like residential segregation going on where trail systems have been built to avoid communities. And I mean, I talk to you all the time about how I think that's something that's really, really cool about Lawrence. And so I'm interested to see like if there are some other ways that, could you maybe smaller little pockets in Lawrence that don't have access. So I think that would be cool, but.
Is that what the spine means, like to cut through, right through the city, to cross the loop?
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be areas that you're gonna wanna connect within the center of the city to get them out to that exterior loop and make sure that there's trail connections there. And there's gonna be key nodes within the city that you're gonna want connected to all of that.
And even some of those, though, I mean, they're wide sidewalks, like even if you hop over, like, if you're on campus, you cut over on, was that 23rd, and you head out, I mean, it's a nice wide sidewalk, it's well lit, like. I mean, there's definitely like some lighting issues and things on the trails, but in terms of like being connected, like.
yeah, I mean, just to give you a concept, we have over 85 miles of trails, also 10-foot wide trails. Most cities our size aren't even close to that.
Yeah.
And when we talk about spurs, yes, we're trying to do the Lawrence Loop, it's 22 miles, but then you gotta think about Clinton Parkway as a part of that. West Sixth Street is a part of that. There's all these things that lead to that loop. So if you wanted to, you could start over there, go all the way around to downtown. Now we've got a gap downtown, trying to fix that, but those spurs are important. So when you get over here, like the Rose Creek Trail, that's the main trail, but then there's other trails that go into the neighborhoods, bring you out there. So if you're wanting to hop on your bike at home, just go down and get on, ride around, so. It's pretty cool.
It's super cool. I love it.
Yeah, plan that goes with that.
I mean, even just like the industrial park, I mean, it kind of, I know it's not developed, but I mean, it's nice wide sidewalks. I mean, I feel like the more the city expands east with the new builds, that's gonna be something that maybe would be an opportunity to keep that new kind of pocket of Lawrence. I feel like pretty soon you're gonna be basically at Eudora anyway, so that might be another cool way to
Get ahead of
encourage
it.
a little, but other than that, like, yeah,
Mhm.
trails are awesome. They're in good, really good shape.
Mhm.
No, ever, like, I could run the pitch black even on the routes where I'm just like kind of running blind and I never have to like really question if I'm gonna hit a crack or something like that. So yeah, I feel like building off would be kind of cool, but other than that, throw some lights up.
The next goal that we identified was really to enhance access and use of natural areas for recreational use. And the action items for that were to highlight where natural areas are within the city for people to explore, and then also to enhance, use signage to enhance some of those areas so that the community is comfortable accessing them, and has interpretive signage to kind of help tell that story. Our next goal was to develop additional outdoor water park experiences in underserved areas within the community with adequate parking. And the action items there are to develop a new water park in an underserved area to support the outdoor aquatics needs of the community. And action item number 2 is really to incorporate the appropriate bather capacity to support the growth of populations occurring in Lawrence and underserved communities.
So what would you consider an underserved area of Lawrence for a water park?
Good answer.
Well,
So there's 2 now, there's one east and one north, so where else might we need them? So we have an outdoor aquatics center also for this side of town. So basically, everything south and everything west is underserved from an aquatics facility standpoint. The indoor aquatic center is over there, but is that the same experience? Probably not. So we have multiple spray parks planned, but they're just kind of, you can say Dead Perry, you can say out by the police facility, you can say, down someplace down south, Holcomb or Broken Arrow. So when you start looking at those type facilities, they're much more, we're gonna walk over there. So they're really, the service radius is fairly small. You usually don't hop in your car to go to the splash pad. So that's what you look at, or, do we need more pools? We have one. Most cities our size have way more than that.
Mhm.
It's kind of a trend now, everybody's starting to do more splash pads than pools, because you get a longer use out of them. You can open them in May, keep them open until October, November, depending on the weather.
Probably don't need as many lifeguards either.
No, you ain't
They're somewhat unappealing after 6.
Yeah, the splash pads,
Yeah.
oh, we are big enough, see, we go bigger. We go, see, we're just, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But they're the hard ones that are.
But to generate revenue and create jobs and stuff, another pool would be fantastic.
So how used is the current pool? Is it?
Highly used.
Does it make, does it make money? Does it profit?
pools never make money.
No,
They-
no.
No, do they lose a lot of money? Is it significant or is it just kind of teeter?
So that pool produces revenue enough to support the operation of it.
Mhm.
That doesn't support enough to do the capital costs or things we need to do. The indoor pool, on the other hand, is a much more of a money pit.
Mhm.
Because if you figure those pumps are running all year long,
Mhm.
24 hours a day, heat's on, cool's on. So that's a much bigger operational cost that you have to cover with people walking in the door, giving them $3 to $4.
Right.
And so the outdoor pool's a much more targeted season. So you open it, you close it, you run it as much as you can during that targeted period. So it gets closer operationally, but we're gonna talk about a fairly significant renovation. It might be $6 million.
Mhm.
That takes a lot of $4 passes to pay for that, so. But it's a community want, community interest.
Was the water park, was that probably the biggest, ask for families? I'm just kind of curious, because I know
You're saying water park, but is it
for splash pad.
really just reduced to a splash pad? We're not
That's not what we're
like
talking about with the
actual
water park.
interactive thing.
Aquatics, pools, splash pads were both high on the list of desires within the community survey for the statistically held survey. So our goal is to help kind of address that, and there's probably going to need to be some study that goes along with that.
it's kind of curious, 'cause we talk on campus in our health sport exercise science department a lot about like, just like, what do families do with kids? And some of my colleagues said, you know, we go skating, is it Topeka? Is that the closest one? Skating, just things that are just like, you know, I don't have kids, but they just talk about like, you know, that can be a challenge trying to find new things or affordable things or things for kids. And so I just didn't know if that was the top ask, so I could go back and report on that, or if there was other big things that came up that families with children, maybe not, maybe you aged out over the splash pad.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
that 13-year-old.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say there's
I
a
see
gap
that.
for
I started in
grade
middle
teens
school,
and
I don't see them
teens.
going
Yeah,
there,
nope.
so.
But I think pools would still like, or a larger than splash pad water park would serve the preteens and teens that really have nothing to do here.
Yeah, my 13-year-old.
Unless they're in
Yeah.
the rec leagues.
Yeah,
So water parks can scale, so what we have are little splash pads. If you go to water park, you can go lazy river, you could do huge pirate ship with cannons, you could do dump buckets, you could do, I mean, literally millions of dollars and really, really. cool.
Okay, and how much is there for the arts there?
Yeah, this is arts too.
Yeah, right.
Art in the
Water
pool.
art.
Yeah.
Yes.
The synchronized.
synchronized swimming.
Yes, and we'll paint the bottom. It's great, it's like a dragon.
Right.
That'll be easy for the lifeguards to see
Oh,
people.
yeah.
No safety concerns.
No, but what I'm telling you is that, and we're talking about this at the outer pool, is that what we want to keep? Is it the 50-meter pool, 25-meter pool diving boards? Is that what we want, or do we want more family friendly that has more features?
Features,
Or even sports features, is it, you know, water basketball, water polo, water, that kind of stuff.
Ninja course.
Yeah, climbing walls, that kind of thing that attracts the demographics you're talking about. You have the walk-in for the little kids, but then what do you do when you get to be 8 or 9 or 10? So. If you don't mind, can you kind of blow through the parks part of this? Just to kind
We're
of,
just getting to the pickleball.
yeah,
So the last one that we wanted to go through was just to increase the pickleball courts in the underserved areas lacking existing courts. And the action items related to determine where the indoor or outdoor pickleball courts can be played without disturbing neighbors and building at least 2 pickleball courts, 2 parks with 8 courts each.
Good luck.
So at the last meeting, you said Lawrence was 2 pickleball courts short. So now we're getting 16 pickleball courts.
I can touch on that a little bit. So we have 8 courts over at Lions, we have 4 courts out at Sports Field. The Lions courts we're getting quite a bit of complaints about the noise. So when we put that in, we had a couple tennis courts that we converted and said, okay, there we got pickleball. Well, as they continue to use that, the noise is becoming a problem with the neighborhood.
So you close those
Long
down.
range, we need to get those away from the neighbors and get it probably more out at sports complex where it's not right next to neighborhoods. And all parks and rec cities are learning the same thing. It seemed like a good spot until you did it, and then it's like, oh,
Till you do it.
yeah. So the renovation over there didn't cost a lot of things, basically renovated. tennis
Are we
courts.
talking literally about ball noise?
Yes,
That's,
yes, the
it's not
paddle ball,
crowds and
paddle
like
ball.
parties and stuff like that, it's the noise, okay. I just wanted to understand.
It's louder than you think, like I live
No, I don't doubt it, I
Like,
just wanted to.
blocks
know
away
actually.
from Lions Park and I can, it's crazy. There's
Oh, I
also-
know, my neighbor complained about this playing back.
Because I mean, we're talking about one each. So that's frustrating, it's like you're providing the space, like you're doing your jobs, like you just can't make noise. And
Like, just
so I
can't make
think it's so
everyone happy.
frustrating for y'all that you're putting these things in here and then like, then you're still getting complaints. So I just think it's gonna be people who are angry, they're gonna be mad, people just like to complain, and so like.
Yeah.
You want people to go to these places, and if pickleball is a hot thing and people are getting bodies out there, and that's
It's
frustrating.
better than having tennis courts that aren't being used.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, just like, me, I'd almost rather, you know, I think splash pads are really cool, but I'd almost love to see just you pay money and buy a bunch of basketballs and baseballs and footballs and throw them out on the, and whoever takes them, they take them, and then one wants to survive, you know, because I feel like just resources and access to some of these things are kind of the biggest barrier. Like, you have a lot of cool things to do, it's just, you know, ball, you can't play basketball. If you don't have a glove, you can't play baseball. I mean, so like, I feel like you have a lot you can work with already, but if people are gonna just complain, then
I'm glad to hear that they're getting used, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm hearing this and processing it, like, is it just because it's a new noise and like eventually you stop hearing the train go by? You know what I mean? Is it just because it's new, it's something to talk about, or is it actually offensive? I don't know, I haven't
It
participated
is
at all.
offensive,
Is it?
and it's, other cities are having the same problem. And so I want to say what we did there is good, but there is way better.
Yeah.
So I know Topeka's putting in a 16-court complex. It's gonna be state of the art with fences and the right size courts and the right size nets. So our community sees that too, because there's multiple ones going in Johnson County,
Mhm.
and they're like, why can't we? So, you know, you see where it's at. It's probably down in the 6 to 10 year range. And it needs, we have a need. We aren't just gonna ignore it, because they're right, that we could do a lot better than we've done. We have some, but. we could be much
6 to
better.
10 years, might be a new sport by then.
I know.
Could be.
Pickle be,
Yeah.
new pickleball, 6 to 10 years.
No, and that's, you know, pickleball kind of snuck up on us a little bit.
Yeah.
It got really big, really fast.
Yeah, that's right.
So we deal with indoor courts also. And we're striking a lot of our gym floors for indoor pickleballs.
Wanted to touch on two last facilities and then the recommendations just for downtown Lawrence and then for South Park. So, action items for downtown Lawrence to continue tree grade installation programs as trees are needed to be replaced every 10 to 15 years. Make sure that there's sidewalk improvements around parking lots, replace planters along Mass Street, identify and develop downtown event space, and really identify and develop a space for the farmer's market. Those are the action items for that space. Any thoughts on that? As you can see how long this
Yeah.
spreadsheet is.
Yeah,
so-
you see
I could see
something
how
in
this
project
looks out.
timeline and it says long-term.
Yeah.
Does that mean now moving forward, it's gonna take longer and it's gonna take up to 6 to 10 years, or it won't be addressed until year 6 through 10?
Yeah, until year 6
Okay.
through 10.
So the ones we got on the front, kind of early, those are the immediate ones? Or is it?
So
These are the ones we first talked about.
Yeah.
Those are more all broad general, that kind of go across kind of the entire city.
and over the entire length of the plan. So this is a 10-year plan that those improvements will continue to be made. South Park, the recommendations are play surfacing repairs, that's scheduled for this year. Looking for additional crosswalk connections, replace the wading pool with the splash pad. Make additions to the playground to make it a destination play structure. Install surface drains in the lower areas of the park and really make additions to historic bandstand for the city band concrete.
This is South Park.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was distracted.
yes, this is South Park.
Please keep emphasizing the beautiful flowers that you guys do. I mean, that,
These tulips are amazing this year.
Mhm.
aren't
It's really pretty out there.
they? Really nice.
you guys, and it's Christmas lights and.
The Christmas lights are fantastic.
Challenge the horticulturist to do something cool with tulips. That's nice.
I think we
Go walk
can-
over there. That's holy cow.
Is it Josh? You like-
I get through like depressions and
I'm confused by it's for city band did that mean to say concerts?
Yeah, I think it's typo.
Okay, I was very confused.
Concrete.
I was like, yes, let's put concrete over those tulips. Just imagine. Yeah. Spell check would get, that would get through spell check, right? Yes. Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
Probably for 10 years. What is that?
All right, I think that's what we wanted to touch on as far as the parks go.
So every single one of these parks has a list of that.
Oh,
And that's important because we're starting to identify where some of those general recommendations might need to take place. So we went in and said, look, here's where we know a restroom needs to be. So if it'll scroll forever and ever, there's 300 or 400 recommendations for every single park. But I felt like that was important to identify that stuff because that often turns into our CIP process. So some of the bigger things like the restrooms, $200,000. So every time we say restroom, we're gonna have to add $200,000. Or every time we say splash pad, it's gonna have to add, $750,000. So I like having very specific things in a master plan so that I like the general because that identifies cross system what we need to do. But in this, it talks about every facility, every park, everything that we know is potentially wrong or needs to be upgraded in the next 10 years. So we know Sports Pavilion is 10 years old.
Mhm.
We know in the next 10 years, we're gonna have to start replacing things like the HVAC system. So that needs to be in, so it can go into the asset management plan. So when you get this to look at, you're gonna keep scrolling, but what the heck is going on here? But that's important.
Is there anything that surprised you guys?
I don't think so.
Uh,
No. I mean, I don't think I saw any surprises in the
You didn't
survey.
like the mini golf course?
Oh, yeah, that one.
Outdoor ice.
The
rink?
mini golf course is like, okay, we don't have one of those.
That's also one of those things that a lot of times you'll see private organizations provide those opportunities.
Which I think as part of this plan is, and we've talked about this with staff as well, but it's important to note that, so I'm glad it's on the survey, but it also shows private investors that
Oh.
we have opportunities that may need to be fixed, but it may not come from city or Parks and Rec necessarily, but they might see that, and then we might have somebody who might want to come in and try.
And that also when it gets to, if it goes to planning commission and ultimately city council, there's pushback there. Then you have the ability to say, yes, it's a private development, that is recommendation from
Yeah.
the survey that more power to them if you can fund that through a private entity and still meet the need that the city has.
See, I think if you look at the core property, I put that in as a family fun park. So we're gonna do go-karts and driving range and mini golf. Yeah, we'll list it. We may not do it, but it has potential.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Where?
it go. So I have the core property, so
Oh.
the my softball. complex.
Oh.
That's where my pickleball complex goes, and
Oh,
I say
good.
volleyball complex, youth sports complex, indoor turf facility, and
Oh,
my family fun parks. All that goes right in there.
Yeah, I think one of the,
It's gonna be right on the highway.
Conquer the world.
I think one of the most interesting examples of a Parks and Rec need that was met by a private entity is our office is in the River Market, and there's very little green space, and a lot of people have dogs in their apartments. Well, if the developer came in and put up Barcade, which it's a pay to play, but on nice afternoons and evenings and on Saturdays when it's nice out and Sundays, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been invited
Yeah.
by Lauren's friends to go there multiple times.
Yeah.
It's definitely a destination.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a bar, it's got restaurants and
It's for all ages and bring your pets.
Yeah,
It's
it's just-
outside.
that met that need of, and we live 15 minutes south of that. So I mean, our kids take their dogs down there just because they can bring them there and go with friends and. have a dog.
Yep.
Well, this is a super impressive document and the detail is phenomenal. I guess let me play arts advocate for just humor me for just a second. I'm a little concerned that the arts recommendations are much vaguer than the specifics that you have attached to the some of the things for Parks and Rec. And I think it's much easier for a group like the City Commission to look at items that have a particular monetary amount attached to them and say yay or nay. And I think it's more difficult to maybe realize or discuss the importance of something that is mushier or doesn't have as, like it doesn't say on the adding to grants that they should be, $100,000 more or, and I guess that concerns me just a little bit because I think it makes those easier to put off or easier to fob off with, $1,000 or $5,000 or whatever. And I think if we're going to make a realistic improvement in the arts in the city, we have to be realistic in the expectations of the amount of money we're willing to invest in it as well. And I think the survey showed that, what was it, 65% of respondents said they thought the arts were important to the city. So I think that kind of needs to be reflected in there somewhere as well. And I don't have a specific recommendation on a change or anything, because I think you guys did a good job probably putting down what was said to you, but I guess that I have some concerns in that regard.
I think part of that is Designing Local has also put together a arts, what was it, the arts policy document, which Porter, you've reviewed and provided your thoughts on it as well. So that kind of supplements these recommendations with some more specifics on direction for future development within the community.
I think you're hitting on.
With dollar signs attached?
No,
And
not
who-
for that, because that's to be determined by the CIP,
And who was this that did?
the consultant team. For the
Jasmine,
arts.
it was
That's-
Okay.
Based
Yeah.
on feedback, I think what you're calling out is that Parks and Rec is already a functioning department. And arts and culture is still trying to find its place. So I think your point is very well taken, and I'm glad that's, you're bringing that to the table. So I think that was, that's where they're starting, is here's their vision for what can happen, and now the question is how quickly can these things be implemented? I would guess that maybe existing programs like grants and things can we can hopefully enhance those for what we've said. But other things are still up in the air as to what actually gets approved as part of this. So that would be my answer. I'm not saying it's the best answer or the right answer, but that would be my answer, just to give a little more
I'm just
perspective.
saying that they need to do a little more to
I feel like it's sometimes
wave the
hard
flag.
too, because like, I feel like with arts, we talked in class on too, like sports, it's easy to say, we need a new gym. That's a measurable thing you can go. In art, it's kind of like, we want more art. And I think from the survey, a lot from what we're seeing is people are like, we want more art, but nobody really knows like, I don't know what a realistic ask would be, but we want, 25 new murals around town. Like that's something that you could then put a number to and say, okay, well, over the next 6 to 10 years, we're going to work on putting 25 murals around Lawrence. And so I feel like that's tough because, we don't really know. I mean, people want art, but in
No, it's more providing more arts opportunities.
yeah,
And that's not murals. That's not,
or
that's people having the capability of seeing more shows, more
Mhm.
concerts, participating in more music events.
for sure. So then like you want like 5 or 10 or 20 events.
I
dedicated
want
to arts.
more money in the grant program.
Yeah.
So if, can you zoom in a little bit? Maybe even go down to the bottom of that. I think there's 178 recommendations across all those tabs. That doesn't include this little under every single part. There's 300 or 400 of those. So I think where we need to live a little bit is in that priority level line. So we start looking at 1, 2s, and 3s, and then looking at all the ones across the whole department and saying of the things we listed for arts, here's our ones. And of the things for parks, here's our ones. Here's for operational maintenance, here's the ones. And that's where I started working. And then that's hopefully where the money starts going first. Where, like the art sculptures at city entrances. Love that idea. I'd love to do it right now. But there's probably some 1s and 2s that need to happen before the 3s. So when we get to implementing this, which is what I tend to do a lot, is convert this to a CIP plan or an operating budget plan. So it becomes a funding game that you're right. If we say the grants are our number one, or we need to fix that ordinance is our one, because that creates our dollars. That's probably our one, honestly, because if we don't have that ordinance dedicating funding, how are all these other things gonna happen?
That's different.
So, yeah, but it's all funding, so it's just money, right? And all of these are money. I mean, there's hundreds of millions of dollars here.
I think one of the things we're facing here is that Parks and Rec is established with established partners. And so it's kind of a network, you might say, but it's pretty well established network. I think my sense is the arts and culture, the role of the city in the arts and culture network is not yet entirely clear. And that's what is going to be evolving with this plan and over time is seeing where does the city fit in relationship to the Art Center, the Lead Center, Theater Lawrence, all of that kind of stuff. We're experimenting.
Anyone else?
Oh, I was looking at the survey results and the most important stuff is indoor fitness center, indoor track. What was,
So sports pavilion's popular,
yeah,
so I don't know if people are wanting more of that.
I don't know, it wasn't clear to me what that was.
I think it could be, because you get a lot of people saying, well, I had to wait to get on the exercise equipment
Yeah.
for 10 minutes before you get going. We need another center.
Or if it's on the west side of town, we
Yeah.
need something on the east side of town.
Yeah, but we do. We've got the East Lawrence Center, we've got downtown, nobody uses those, you know.
Hey, I'll be honest, those treadmills, the community center. But,
You,
Okay. One more. Need to.
More courts,
Agree.
more courts.
Are we done? Thank you very much.
thank you all for your time.
Well, thank you guys.
So enjoy.
Really do appreciate it. Very much.